Ellin Ruffner is a licensed clinical social worker and an American Red Cross volunteer who continually puts her life on hold when the unthinkable happens.
I grew up in New York City, and in the suburbs in Scarsdale. And I raised my family in New London, Connecticut. I became a clinical social worker, married to a psychiatrist, and so we had a practice in New London for about 35 years. Our first grandchild was born. Our kids lived in Portland. On a whim, on a visit one day, we bought a house in Yarmouth to use as our granny visiting the grandchild house, so we wouldn't be too intrusive. We commuted on the weekends, and on a whim, again, decided to close our practice and sell our house in Connecticut. All our kids had grown and moved away, and we moved to Maine.
What was it about Maine that you...
I love it here. When we used to bring the kids here in the summer, when we went over that bridge that brought you into the state of Maine, the family all would say, "Oh, Mama's going to be in a good mood now. We've crossed over the bridge, we're in Maine." I love the feeling. I love the relaxing feeling. I love the light. I love the people. I love the way of life. I think it's just great.
Now you're retired. I say that with air quotes,
yes,
because
I'm
you're
retired.
really not. You have just an incredible schedule. Talk about, just the stuff that you do in retirement.
Well, I started with the Red Cross when I was still working a little bit. I had a very light caseload. And I would explain to my clients from the get-go that I do work for the Red Cross and I occasionally get deployed to national disasters.
You've been doing that since 2005, is that correct?
2005. Hurricane Katrina. I was sitting in my office, and one day an email came through from the National Association of Social Workers that the Red Cross was looking for trained mental health people to go to Katrina. I didn't even know that the Red Cross did anything but get blood for people. I didn't know they did disaster work. And I sat looking at that email and I said, my kids are grown up. Wow, I could really do that. I could go help those people. I will never forget. I walked out of my house, this New York City girl, 5-star hotel trained, with this big duffel bag behind me. No idea what I was getting myself into. Absolutely no idea. My neighbors kept bringing me things like, "Oh, you might need this pad for under your sleeping bag. You might need this miner's light," which I'd never seen before in my life, which is my most prized possession now. I use it all the time in Red Cross volunteer work. And I did 3 very, very, very tough weeks, 16, 17-hour days or more.
Wow.
And I came back and I had the bug. There's something very inspiring about, for me, about this kind of work.
Did it surprise you? Would you just not know what to expect, or was it overwhelming?
It was all of those things. We got to Montgomery, Alabama, and they took us to a great big old abandoned Kmart, which was also where the staff shelter was, where we slept. It was pitch dark by then. To wheel my duffel in to find an empty cot, and to go brush my teeth in the little ladies' room that they had in the Kmart. And then I was there until they figured out where they were going to assign me, which was to Mississippi, a shelter in Mississippi. Great big Baptist church, and there was a shelter in there. And we lived in there and worked in there until we were able to get that shelter closed, which was very difficult to find places for all these people to go. Some of these people told stories of coming up to the shelter from Louisiana on the back of a garbage truck. I mean, the most incredible stories, without anything, without shoes, without clothing, sometimes without parts of their family. So they were so pleased that we got that one shelter closed that they moved us to another one and asked us to do the same.
Wow.
But very, very gratifying when you're able to tap into what people need and find the resources for them.
You've been on 13 deployments. You've named a few of them. Sandy, talk about some of the other ones you've been on.
I worked Sandy for 3 weeks in New York. I worked the Boston bombings recently in Boston. I worked the recent tornado in Oklahoma. I've done San Diego wildfires, a tornado in Kansas, floods in the South a lot, Mississippi a few times, North Carolina. I've always been a travel nut, and that's probably one of the reasons this is a click for me.
What is the most important thing right off the bat that you try to help people with?
Right off the bat, we try to help people to make sure that their basic needs are met. If you're hungry and you're cold and you don't know where you're going to rest your head tonight, there's nothing else you can work on. That medically they're okay, they have their medicines, they know where the food is, which is hopefully there, provided by us. So after we ensure the basic needs are met, a lot of what we do, I think, is psychoeducation. We want people to know that there are normal responses to very overwhelming abnormal situations, like losing your home in a fire or seeing your whole community torn down by a tornado or by a hurricane. If you can't think straight, if you can't make a decision, if you can't sleep, if you're not eating or overeating, a whole host of things, that is normal, a normal reaction to an abnormal situation.
Is it hard for you to step away from the destruction and the trauma that you're seeing and focus on the people?
You know, you can do the shock with your friends when there aren't any clients around. But when we're with the clients, no, we're able to get it together.
You deal with the other issues later. You put that aside.
Yeah, and as mental health for the other workers, we're there for other workers to do that if they need to talk about it. People are incredibly resilient. People are remarkable, and it always floors me. And that's part of the reason I do this. I see the worst, but then I see the best of people. I see people take a deep breath and get over the shock of it all and really be able to do amazing things for themselves, for each other, for clients, as well as for Red Cross people. I've met remarkable, remarkable people.
How is it dealing with the Boston bombings? Such a horrific act, not of Mother Nature.
That's the hard one. The amount of anger that we have as well as the clients have. You know, Mother Nature, you kind of know, you can be angry at her, but we're used to her. She does these things. People deliberately hurting other people is very hard. The entire city of Boston was in shock, so that everybody, and they kept reminding us of that at headquarters, everybody out there is a client. When you're walking down the street, everybody you see is worried about what's going to happen next. Is it going to happen again?
You know, I think people think of the Red Cross too as sort of when they see that Red Cross, they think it's sort of like knight in shining armor, have arrived. Did you sort of get that feeling like, help is on the way?
That's what we want to portray, that we're here now, we're here to help you. We have resources, we can look for resources, we care deeply. We are not affected personally, so that we can put all our attention on helping these guys. And some disasters, that takes a little longer than others, and I think the more quickly that can happen, the better people do.
So as long as you're willing and able, are you going to be out there?
Absolutely, absolutely. Until they tell me I can't do it anymore.
Ellin Ruffner is a kind of person you definitely want in your corner. She is gracious, kind, understanding, and ready to deploy when she gets that call.